Hey everyone, Mitch coming in for the Commander Score Studio. Welcome to the show. Okay, so the brand new RC, or actually should I say, gotta get used to this now, Commander Format Panel. That is the new term, the CFP for short, I guess. I don't know. Anyways, has been revealed. A brand new article is up on the website. Let's jump into it from Gavin Verhey just today. Introducing the Commander Format Panel. Very straightforward. Here we go. All right. Hello, everybody. Gavin Verhey here. And after a couple of weeks ago, the Commander Rules Committee gave Wizards of the Coast management of the Commander format. That's a very simple way of putting it. You can learn more about that and the events that led to it, both in our article and the weekly MTG live stream afterward. And yeah, I mean, I know it's a bit complex in what all happened, so trying to rehash all that, yeah, putting the links there is probably a bit more fair. All right. This whole situation is truly unprecedented. I appreciate all your patience here as we work to figure out our next steps. I know many of you have been waiting to hear more, and today I will share what's happening and what you can expect in the future. When I first started playing Commander, one of the things that struck me was how community-focused the format is. It's a format played avidly at homes or at game nights with friends. It was created by community members, so it's absolutely crucial to me that the decisions around Commander always remain in touch with the community of Magic players around the world. I'm excited to announce the Commander Format Panel. We hinted at this a couple weeks ago on stream and have been hard at work putting it together since. What is this? How does it work? And who's on it? Let me take you through it all. Forming the Commander Format Panel. As I mentioned before, keeping the community front and center here is critical. So we wanted to assemble a group of the community to manage Commander, the Commander Format Panel. It is, there you go, CFP. All right, it's short in there. Okay, that's a bit easier than Commander Format Panel. Just try to remember that every single time. CFP for short. Okay. It's inspired by the Pauper Format Panel, the PFP, I guess. If you aren't familiar, it's a group announced at the beginning of 2022. We're a bunch of individuals from around the world that works together to monitor the health of Pauper, suggest changes, and discuss things like ban updates. I feel like it's worked out well, and it's the base that we wanted to model Commander's community group after. And actually, I want to just kind of put my own little thing in here right here as well. I have heard from many people online that the Pauper Format Panel has been doing well. With the format, it seems like pretty positive feelings toward that. That being said, obviously, Commander is somewhat of a different beast in a much larger format, so we shall see. And it's just a different type of format, obviously, with it being multiplayer. Moving on. While there are similarities, there are some differences too. For example, unlike Pauper, Commander already had several community groups that ran it. Very true. The Commander Rules Committee and the Commander Advisory Group. These groups have worked hard to maintain the vision and spirit of Commander. It was important to me that they continue as a through line, especially during this transition. Makes sense. So, in creating this group, the first thing we wanted to do was offer positions to everybody who was on the Commander Rules Committee and CAG. Starting with these community leaders was important to me. On top of those groups, we wanted to add in some new eyes as well. Magic is a diverse global game, and Commander is especially popular with players who play for many different reasons. I really wanted to bring in players from other places in the world who have had different preferred levels of Commander play. That way, the feedback would come from more regions of the world, and we could hear the full range of the Commander spectrum from players who prefer extremely casual decks to CEDH competitive Commander players. It's a large group. For year one of the Commander Format Panel, we have 17 members. You'll get to meet all of them in a moment, but let's talk about a few other things first, namely, what will this group be doing? Okay, so again, it's a pretty large group. I can't remember the total number of RC and CAG members. Like, the RC was 5, I believe. Is that correct? Let me know in the comments below. The CAG was, I think, a little smaller to start, but then got pretty big as well, too. So maybe that's around what the exact same number of people we had previously. But, yeah, that is quite a large panel, in my opinion. All right, the Commander Format Panel's mission. This group will be working with our design teams and other teams at Wizards to help provide feedback and craft the Commander experience. We're going to have an ongoing group Discord where we discuss the format throughout the week, every week. Okay. So again, this is, the Commander Format Panel will be giving feedback essentially to, the actual design teams and others at Wizards. Okay. A lot of it is going to be that I bring topics to them that we're talking about Wizards for their thoughts and opinions. Longer term, I expect these people will bubble up trends they're seeing or community concerns so we can talk about them as a group. It's really a two-way street. They'll see what we're working on and get the chance to impact it, and they'll share with us what they're seeing that we should take a closer look at. Interesting. I also want to emphasize something loudly. Commander is a fantastic format that has grown under the community leadership for years, and we want to maintain that. Wizards is not looking to go in and make tons of changes, and I'm not expecting the Commander format panel will want to do that either. Interesting. So we shall see. I mean, when again, they say major changes, there's different levels of what a major change is to someone and what it isn't to someone else, obviously. And there have been some things that some very loud voices at Wizards have maybe wanted to change in Commander over the years. Most notably, I mean, previously, something about, Planeswalkers, or some things about hybrid mana symbols and what kind of decks that can go in. Other things like that. So we really shall see. And again, when it comes to like big splashy moves, I don't expect major bans to be coming in the near future, but maybe some major unbans could happen. We shall see with that as well. So, all right. An important goal to me is that every major Commander announcement that Wizards intends to make has this group's eyes on it first. This article included, by the way, reviewing it was one of the first things the panel did together. We want feedback from the players in our community who are close to the format, are from all around the world, and who have their own unique perspective. This isn't running every set's cards through them, though on occasion we may relay individual cards and mechanics for feedback, but it is discussing anything around the format we plan on doing or trying out. Okay, I mean, that is interesting because, again, like, there are certain problematic cards that end up coming out throughout, different sets and that kind of stuff, and some things ahead of time need to be discussed. Obviously, again, like individual cards, mechanics, they might miss something. I mean, they just might. And obviously, it's going to be a process of growing, a process of learning and understanding how this works. But yeah, like not, maybe putting like Nadu through, the Commander format panel would be a mistake ahead of time. So here we go. All right. I also think it's good to note, and I've told everyone on the panel this as well, that I do not expect everyone will agree on everything. Well, of course, they shouldn't agree on everything. That's kind of the point of having a panel. If you just have everyone who agrees and yes ands everything, then that's not going to get anywhere. It's just going to be, no decisions being made that are contrast to what Wizards is saying, essentially. Getting 17 Commander players to agree on anything is a tall order, and these people are specifically chosen in part because they have diverse opinions. Good. Ultimately, myself and other designers at Wizards are going to make the final calls, but I do expect that most of the time, majority opinion on the panel will win out. Now, that is where I do find things to be problematic, in my opinion. Again, where ultimately myself and other designers at Wizards are going to make the final calls. So, again, this is a format that, again, has been community-driven. Gavin did emphasize that earlier and the importance of keeping it community-focused. But again, making it so that Wizards gets to make the final calls basically no matter what is, in my opinion, problematic. Again, like they say, I do expect the most time majority opinion on the panel will win out, but that doesn't mean every single time. And also, we won't be able to hear when there is dissent on this stuff, most likely, again, because if you check my episode out on Wizards and their contract, and we'll talk about the person who kind of talked about, should I sign this contract or not because of the language in it, they might not be on this community because maybe they didn't agree with that way that the contract was written. So again, Wizards being able to make the final calls, us not potentially being able to hear that, the Commander format panel was basically against this decision. And, it just went through anyway because Wizards got to make the final call. So you don't get to really see kind of, again, what the discussion around the call is. At least, I mean, I'm not expecting to be able to see that. I'm not expecting to see the discourse around it. I'm not expecting to see, like, a breakdown of, like, who voted what, or, who thought this, or who thought that. Or, it was a tough decision, but, we ultimately went this way because that's what the majority said, essentially. It's going to be more so, like a unified front, it seems like, where, again, Wizards just gets to make the call. They are getting feedback, but, again, Wizards is the end-all, be-all answer, which, again, has been basically the exact opposite with the way that things have been run since the conception of Wizards, of Commander, because Commander was a community-driven format, and now it is not. So I think this is again, you can have all this flowery language and all this nice things that people are saying, but, again, at the end of the day, if things work in this way, I do think there are going to be problematic things moving forward where, again, if Wizards just gets to make the final call on things, then what's the point? That, again, I guess is the kind of darkest version of it. there are going to be times where I do think the commander for the CFP, I'm just going to call it CFP, the commander format panel is going to push back and will have meaningful things to say. But again, like ultimately, if Wizards like, no, we're making another Jewel Lotus because we want to, and you can't stop us because you can't, I mean, well, it's ultimately our decision, number one. Number two, you can't tell the community that you think it's a bad decision. And yeah, we want to drive profits instead of, maybe better the format of Commander. This is kind of the crux of everything so far that we've read, I believe, where it's just like, this is, yeah, potentially problematic. But again, hopefully things go better. But from what we've seen from Wizards over the past couple years, I am not as optimistic, one might say, than other people might be. All right. To that end, I've also told the members of the panel that they're not just welcome to express their own opinions publicly, but they are encouraged to. Okay, so that is good. But again, make sure you check out that episode on the thing that they had to sign. Because again, they're encouraged to express their opinion, but opinion to a certain point where you can't criticize Wizards in certain ways is kind of what, if you read between the lines, that's kind of where, from that previous episode, just make sure you check it out. I don't want to go all the way into that again. All right. They're here because they're community members, and it's important they can be honest. They shouldn't feel beholden to back up whatever decisions the panel or Wizard Coast makes. I don't want them to have to act or speak inauthentically. Stating their own opinions in public is totally fine. Disagreeing loudly is totally fine. Loudly and publicly taking issue with our decisions is totally fine. Since Wizards makes the calls, if there is any frustration, it should be placed on us at Wizards, non-members of this panel. And many of the members of the panel are content creators, and it's important to both us and them that they are free to disagree and offer different opinions on their own channels. Okay, so maybe I should have scrolled down a little bit further, but that is nice to hear. But again, I would like to have them respond to what that contract that they had to sign was, and again, why one of the former members of the Rules Committee is not on this panel, because they apparently didn't decide to sign it. So there you go. All right. The first class of the Commander format panel has all signed on for a year. Commander is always changing, and great new community voices appear regularly. And while there is global reach on this panel, there are still many places I'd love to be able to have members join from over time. So each year, some people rotate off, some new people rotate on, and a number will remain. This provides natural rotation from year to year, helping to make sure we have a mix of people keeping the vision and new voices coming in to represent the community. You can expect this rotation somewhere between mid-October to early November. I think that's fair, especially when you have a large panel like this one. I would like some consistency, though, at a certain point when you do get people who have been on the panel for a while, that have been putting in good work for the panel, and that, again, are a trusted voice from the community to Wizards, so that Wizards actually listens to them potentially, that you have some consistency for some decisions as well, and things not just churning every single year. I don't see that they're saying, it's just going to keep churning completely, but yeah, I would like some consistency on there as well, and yeah, some change is good too. To set expectations, it is likely that the total number of people will go down the first rotation. I think that's good. 17 people plus myself is a huge group. Absolutely it is. For the first year, there's plenty for us to evaluate together, so I'm happy to have the extra eyes and experience, and it's really important to maintain consistency and vision during this transition. I definitely agree with that. That, again, some consistency is good, but also, 17 people is a ton. Yeah, pare that down. I could see it ending up. I mean, I think an odd number would be nice. That way, if you do have, kind of a vote on something, you're not just it's a split decision, 5 and 5. I think, 9 seems much more reasonable to me for a CFP. But that's just my number. Your number might differ. Okay. All right. Given the scope of work on the most popular format in Magic and the levels of discussion, we wanted to make sure people were more than just volunteers, so everyone on the panel is being paid for their work as well. I think that's very good that the panel is being paid. Okay, what's next for a commander? Now that the panel is established, what are we going to be working on right away? You might remember the bracket system that was mentioned previously in this article and on the weekly MTG stream. We at Wizards have iterated a lot with your feedback. Thank you all for that. We have something that we're interested in trying. That's good that they're listening to feedback, because again, there is a lot from the community in general. I did a couple episodes on some community feedback from these things and my own feedback as well, and how there's definitely some flaws in their initial kind of bracket system that they made. All right, however, while initially I was hoping to get something out to beta test at MagicCon Las Vegas this weekend, it's really important to me to involve the panel in things like this. And when I say that, I mean, so rather than rush anything out to beta test at MagicCon, I'd rather have time for the panel to dig in, provide feedback, and iterate. That could be as simple as some tiny tweaks, or as large as a full overhaul based on their feedback. We'll have more to share when it's ready, and we'll still aim to run a beta test at an upcoming event. When it does debut, you can know all these great minds of Commander have worked on it and discussed it together. Okay, I do think that is a good call. I think that the initial, bracket system that we saw left a few things, left a few things on the board kind of that probably, should have been tinkered with. And I mean, again, it wasn't a final. They weren't showing a final project of it, but again, it just seemed like they're trying to oversimplify something that can't be oversimplified in that way, and it kind of was a bit problematic, especially for me when it comes to like a power level 4 card is Vampiric Tutor, which is based off of its power, just how good the card is in the format, and then Armageddon is also power 4, which is not based on its power, but based on how salty the card is in Commander. Those are two different things. I do hope that they split that out somehow, where it just have here, maybe don't play these cards because of salt score if you're playing casual. And then other cards this is just based on strictly on power. That's just my opinion. I know other people have different opinions, but I hope that they do get some good feedback from the CFP. I think I'm saying that right. I got a Commander Format Panel. Yeah, CFP. Got to get used to that. Okay. Hope they get some good feedback from the CFP. I'm glad they're not rushing it out to MagicCon Las Vegas. I thought that was a bit ambitious, overly ambitious, because, it's probably wouldn't go well to start off with, I wouldn't think, without it having more eyes on it from the community. And I do think that the people in the panel will probably do a good job giving feedback to Wizards and be like, hey, maybe not yet. So good. Iterating should be good. And again, I do think that, they will probably announce it from an upcoming event, again, like a beta test. They said, I do think that's a good way to go about it because, again, then you can get immediate feedback from it. I don't think they should have rushed it to this one where it's a month later after, controlling the format, now here's this thing. I think waiting and trying to get community buy-in by doing it in a better way as much as you can, I think is going to be important. So the next major event is next year in February in Chicago might be that. So there you go. It could be at a smaller event before that. I'm thinking about Command Fest though, I think is what it is. But basically, I do think that probably, if I had to guess, next February, Chicago. So maybe an announcement in January with the actual power bracket system or whatever it is probably what's going to happen. Now, do I think it's a good idea overall? I am not convinced. I do not think it's going to be a good idea because it's going to try to oversimplify something that can't be oversimplified, but it's fun to discuss, I guess. So we shall see. It is fun to kind of just see all the different ways you go about it. And I'm not all that hopeful that it's going to work out, but I could be proven wrong, and I hope to be proven wrong with that. We shall see. I will say, to clarify one thing about what you can expect from power brackets, they're a totally optional thing to help you curate your games, much like the question, what power level is your deck but clear? It's a nice thing to have, but for tons of people, I don't expect Commander to change. Where I do think that is interesting, though, and why they would bring this up at an event, though, and I think they mentioned this, though, if you're going to have, we've got, this table area for this table for that, this table for that, and you put the power bracket numbers on those, I think players probably are going to just go to where the power bracket level is that they're, if you have a website where you put your deck in and then it says your power bracket 2 because you've got this card in the deck, or power bracket 4 because you've got this card in the deck, then I think that if you're going to encourage that behavior and here's how this works, let's test it out, I think people are going to, actually, it's not really all that, not that it's not optional, but it's kind of weird that you're okay, this is how it works at the event, and then not expecting people to kind of follow that at the event. If you're here's a 1, 2, 3, 4 areas, I do think that you're kind of talking out of both sides of your mouth with that, though, if that's how you're expecting it to work. Again, I'm not positive that's exactly how they're going to do it, but I believe they mentioned that. Now, okay, when it comes to again, power brackets, especially when it comes to playing at home with your friends, in your own playgroup, it is something that really doesn't apply all that much. If you're playing in your playgroup, you've been playing for a while, you probably know around what players' decks, power levels are just in general and just how you can match up. If you're playing in LGS, maybe this will apply. We shall see just kind of how that all lends itself. And again, trying to make it clearer with this, again, you could be trying to oversimplify things. It could be a good way to go about it, but it also can, again, since it's not taking certain things into account, cause a bit more confusion, a bit more problems, because again, I was a player when I first started playing Commander. I was playing my Joyra Artifact Storm deck because I thought that was a completely fine thing in Commander. I saw no problems with it because it was a $25 deck. It's an incredibly budget-friendly deck. It doesn't use any cards that are probably outside of power level 1, but because it's so synergistic, it just makes, incredibly long turns. Like a 20+ minute turn is not unexpected from that. And that is something that's like, okay, it's power level 1. It should be completely fine with these tables, right? But you need to give context to that because, again, this power level bracket system does not take into account the synergies between cards. It is taking into account just, hey, this is a powerful card you have in your deck. Cool, it's a 4. And I think I've mentioned this before, but like Kuro Pit Lord is my example. Like a 9-mana terrible commander. It's not terrible, but it's not a very powerful commander at all. If you just have the Vampiric Tutor in that deck, but like nothing else, it's not that tuned of a deck, like does that just make it a 4 because there's 1 card in it? So again, I think like trying to make this clear, it is a good mission to have. Is it a bit blinded in that mission? Potentially, again, because I do think that you could cause more problems than you help solve when you have, hey, okay, power levels. Everyone go sit at their tables for their power levels, and it's just like out of context. So, especially again, if you have salty cards also in certain power levels versus kind of breaking out just power. So, that's just my opinion, though. We shall see again. And my expectation is that we will be seeing this power bracket system kind of unveiled next year, probably beginning of the year next year. Again, before, I think, again, let me know in the comments if I'm wrong with this, but I believe Chicago is in February. I would assume that's when they're going to try to line it up. Again, after they've gotten some feedback from the CFP. Okay. After aligning on a bracket system and running some tests, I expect our focus to turn to our evaluation of the banned card list. Yeah, I can see that. To set expectations on that timeline, I wouldn't expect any changes before early next year at the earliest. Yes, and you will have advance notice. As we said previously, it's still true that you should not expect any new bans in that evaluation. Okay, so this is all to expectation from what I am seeing so far. Except for you will have advance notice. That's interesting that they're going to give us advance notice. I mean, is it going to be like, hey, we're unbanning 4 cards? Is that going to be the advance notice? I'm wondering, like, I'm not going to say what the cards are, but like, hey, there's going to be a ban announcement or unban announcement this day. Get ready for it. Now, when it comes to, again, like evaluation and then it being, early next year at the earliest, that makes sense. And again, kind of lines up with the timeline that I'm expecting for the power bracket system. If they're saying it's going to be like after that, sure. So after that, again, which I'm assuming is going to be January, yeah, we could see some, maybe like right after, the first MagicCon, like after February, like, hey, okay, an update to the ban list. And again, it's true that you should not expect any new bans in that evaluation. That's understandable, and that's probably exactly what, the community would expect in general, I would think. And where Wizards kind of saw, like, the community got, or some members of the community got upset from the bans from the previous, the 4 bans that just happened, essentially. So trying to ban some more probably isn't what they're going to be doing. That being said, I definitely expect some unbans, and that's kind of where things might get a little bit hairy, because, again, if Wizards is like, well, we're unbanning Jeweled Lotus and Mana Crypt, that could be a bit hairy in the situation that occurs with that, because, again, like, they're going back on what the rules committee just did, and then kind of establishing, oh, it's because these cards are expensive, essentially, and people got upset. So, not that it's, again, and many people have agreed that, like, these cards are not good for Commander. And also, like, on the Wizard stream, they agreed that, like, Jeweled Lotus was a mistake. They said that Jeweled Lotus was a mistake. So, them unbanning a mistake is a bit ridiculous. We shall see if they do that. That being said, I do think, and again, I did an episode on this as well, make sure you check that one out, but on, like, the likelihood of certain things being unbanned, like, yeah, like some community favor cards, like ones that are like, oh, the community's been asking for this to be unbanned for years, essentially, like Coalition Victory, maybe Biorhythm, etc., cards like that. Yeah, would they unban something like that just to, like, kind of gain some points from the community, essentially, for the most part? Yeah, I think that that's probably what we should expect. I really hope that that's not like, and this is kind of like I can't remember who was saying, but like a smokescreen, kind of like where, like, they unban Coalition Victory and maybe Biorhythm and some cards that, like, make the community kind of happy that they're unbanned because they've been asking for them to get unbanned for a while or whatnot, or some members have been. And then they also, like, by the way, also Mana Crypt and Jeweled Lotus. And it's like, yeah, we kind of see what you're doing there. So we shall see. Again, not expecting new bans. That's expected completely. Expecting unbans. Yeah, unbans are probably going to be occurring. And again, there's a lot. If you haven't seen my episode on that one too, there's been a lot of episodes around this. A lot of news lately. My goodness. And see my episode on, like, the price spikes lately. There have been certain cards that have been going up an absurd amount because of, like, unbanned speculation. Like, was it Tolarian Academy went up all the way from, like, $100 to $200 or so, or even more than that because of unbanned speculation. Now, do I think that's going to be unbanned? I don't think it's going to be unbanned. Not very likely. We shall see, though. But, yeah, like, Biorhythm, Coalition Victory, all used to be, like, less than $1. Now they're, like, a little bit more than that. I think around 10 or so one of them is. Anyways, okay. One major thing that's been stressed in conversations and feedback to me is that Commander moves slow. This isn't like a format that wants a heavy touch or constant reevaluations like competitive formats. So while there are things we want to work on as we transition into look at everything together, we're going to take our time to do it right. We don't want to have things changing all the time. Stability is a cornerstone of what makes Commander so great. For today, I want to focus on communications so you know what's coming next. I do think that's important. I do think that there is some context to just how slow Commander moves, though. Again, one of the things that was kind of like a gut punch to some community members out there with this most recent banning was that, like, it had been silent for 3 years. Like, there weren't bans for, like, 3 years. Again, like, the last thing I think that was banned was Golos, which seems like forever ago. I think it was... Is that July of 3 years ago? Something like that? It was a long, long time ago when we got our last ban. Even though there's been cards since then that maybe some community members were like, yeah, this probably should get banned. So that. Also, I mean, some pre-ban things, which again is kind of a problem with Wizards having final say on everything. When they're designing things, again, they're designing them with the intention that this card is going to be legal in Commander. They're not going to be, except for like maybe in an edge case like Lutri, that's a very edge case card. But like, another card, again, like Nadu should have been pre-banned probably, right? If you are designing something and then you have the Commander format panel tell you this probably shouldn't be a legal card, like Jewel Lotus, right? I think Josh Lee Kwai said that, he gave them like kind of his opinion on it like a year in advance, like, do not print this, please. Like, this is not good for Commander. They still went through with it. So again, like saying that, hey, okay, we're not going to make changes for a long time, that could also be a bad thing where it's like they're not going to adjust in time for, again, a new card coming out that like could be problematic again, like a Nadu, where it's like, okay, what was the point of Nadu ever being legal? Because it was a card that probably should have been pre-banned, just knowing what it did ahead of time and seeing it ahead of time. And literally right when you see the card, everyone's like, Shuko, Shuko, Shuko. I mean, Lightning Greaves too, but yeah, Shuko. Cards, they can easily break it, and it's a very kind of annoying thing to play against. And a, win condition that might happen, might not. I'm going to take 30 minutes for my turn. So again, having the fox and the henhound, is that the phrase or whatever it is, where Wizards is making those decisions. And again, the Commander format panel is going to be potentially pushing back on some of those, but Wizards has final say on them, is potentially problematic. And again, when it comes to moving slow, I agree. You shouldn't have just major changes left and right every single week, every single month. But again, you should have honest feedback when it comes to like a new set coming out and like, hey, this card is probably problematic before it's even coming out. Like, we shouldn't have this card coming out in Legal and Commander at all to start. Sometimes. Again, that's a rare occurrence. Again, Lutri was definitely one, and they actually banned that one ahead of time, which was great. Nadu was like another where it's like, okay, we need to make sure that that actually happens. But yeah, when it comes to like banning things here and there, I mean, once a year is probably, ban, unban adjustments once a year is probably more reasonable than like giant 3-year gap and then 4 bans. So we shall see. Again, it just really depends on how things are moving forward. I, again, am very skeptical of Wizards for many, many reasons, but, you can always help. Okay. Meeting the panel. Okay, so real quick, who are the people on the panel? Some of them are faces you probably recognize. Others might be entirely new to you. Let's meet 17 members. There's a lot of information here. I will just link this article below, but I'll say the names. But like, if you click on each one of these, like, you can see all the information on who this individual is. So there you go. Attack on Cardboard, Bandit, Benjamin Wheeler, Charlotte Sable, Quan Watson, Deco, I apologize if I misspeak on any of these. Greg Sablin, Itetu, Josh Lee Kwai, Kristen Gregory, Louis Stardust, Olivia Gobert-Hicks, Rachel Weeks, Rebel Lily, Scott Larrabee, Tim Willoughby, and Toby Elliott. So some familiar names from there. I believe Scott and Toby were on the rules committee or have been on the rules committee. I think since the inception of Commander. I could be wrong on that, but please let me know in the comments below. Obviously, some members of the CAG as well previously, with Josh Lee Kwai, Olivia, and others as well. It's an interesting panel. Again, I hope that that Wizards does take, the feedback from them seriously, and that, again, just doesn't kind of steamroll decisions, because we shall see. Okay. We're all excited to be part of crafting the future of Commander together. It's an incredibly talented group of individuals, and I can't wait to see what we do all together. Gavin, we have the entire format in the following. Okay, so there you go. So all of them. Okay, so again, I will link this article below if you, again, want to kind of just see all the information on all these people or kind of reread through this yourself. Again, this is all just my perspective on, again, my take on the the move to this, and then also what we might be able to expect moving forward. Again, I'm a bit more hesitant to believe Wizards on things because of previous things that they've done where it seems like it's a very profit-driven decision versus kind of what's best for the community, and sometimes. And again, the main thing that, if I could find that line again, where it's potentially problematic to me, what was it? Ultimately, there you go. Ultimately. I had to do a search for that. Okay. Ultimately, myself and the other designers at Wizards are going to make the final calls, but I expect that most of the time, majority opinion of the panel will win out. I mean, expectation is nice that would happen, but again, the fact that Wizards gets to make the final calls and the designers, so you have, again, the design team, there's not really a system of checks and balances then. Again, if Wizards is just going to be making the final calls on these things, and they're the ones printing the cards, and they're the ones designing the cards, again, why would they design something that they're like, yeah, you know what, we're okay with banning it ahead of time because this was a problematic card, like a Jewel Lotus or whatever. So, it is one where, again, I'll believe it when I see it. I hope that this works out. I am skeptical of Wizards when it comes to these kind of things, and again, I think it's problematic that Wizards is the one who gets to make the decisions at the end of the day, and not a community panel that, again, is for a community-driven format. So, yeah, we shall see, though. So, overall, interesting news. Let me know your thoughts on all this in the comments below. Again, this is all just my opinion on my perspectives on this, and others are going to differ out there. That's completely fine. Yeah, I do think it's a good thing, though, that the power bracket system is not getting unveiled for Vegas. I think that might be a bit of a disaster if they're like, yeah, this is how it works. Oh, my goodness, everything's on fire. So, yeah, trying to actually hash that out as much as they can. I, again, hope it's in a more kind of defined place next year. I hope, again, it takes things into account like Salt. I hope it takes things into account like synergies between cards. We shall see. Again, Magic is a very, very complex game. A lot going into it. Again, it's a new age for Commander. It's going to be interesting to see how things play out, though. And with that, this episode is coming to a close. Make sure you comment below with your thoughts on it. And, of course, as always, thanks again, and have a good one. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. We also have a ton of brand new t-shirt designs in stock, so make sure you check out those as well. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG Player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all of their support.